Lindsay Clancy. That's, oh, what a week it's been. I mean, technically, this has been going on for 3 years, but it hasn't been in the spotlight until this last week or so. When I made my first reaction video, I mentioned her in it, and I don't think the story had quite blown up yet. It hadn't really blown up until, these swarms of women started to defend her. I just mentioned it because I was like, wow, this is really fucked up. And then it blew up, or at least that's how it seemed to go. But yeah, who could have imagined that women would defend this and defend it so fervently?
I am leaning on this probably being from the Bible, the verse I'm thinking of. I don't remember if it's a verse that's being paraphrased in the Book of Mormon or if it is mentioned in the Bible, but I'm pretty sure there are verses talking specifically about this. In Isaiah to be exact, but I don't remember off the top of my head. I remember talking about the women drinking the blood of their children. And up till this past week, I had thought of it generally, as many in my family have thought of it, as metaphorical, using like abortion as an example. You're cutting off, you are literally killing the next generation. That's a pretty apt way of using drinking the blood of your children as a metaphor, possibly. But of course, with this case and all the women clamoring over it, fighting to defend it, no, apparently that's one of those things that was very, very literal, and everything else that it could be metaphorically ascribed to, like abortion, was just the lead up to it.
That verse, I'll look it up in a second. I think you're thinking of something in, might have been in like Deuteronomy or something, or maybe later. I think it was literal, but it wasn't referring to behavior. I think it was referring to God punishing his people. And he said, like, you will devour your own children. And he was referring to men and women. You will be in such dire conditions that this is what you'll be brought to. But I don't think it was behavior. Like, oh, this is just something women do. Although, if it said that, I wouldn't have a problem with it. So yeah, according to Grok, that's saying, it says key Bible passages describe parents or people eating their own children as a horrific consequence of extreme famine during sieges, presented as a curse for covenant disobedience or as an observed tragedy under divine judgment. Yeah, that's what I thought. So Leviticus, Deuteronomy, Jeremiah, Lamentations, and Ezekiel. Even one from 2 Kings. 2 Kings 6:28-29. The king asks a woman what is wrong. She replies, "This woman said to me, give your son that we may eat him today, and we will eat my son tomorrow." So we boiled my son and ate him, and on the next day I said to her, "Give your son that we may eat him," but she has hidden her son. What the shit? So this is during the Syrian siege of Samaria. So
it's amazing the stories we can be reminded of when we actually go through the Bible.
It's one of my issues, not to sidetrack, but this is one of my issues with modern Christianity. The Bible is not G-rated. It's not, yeah, you can depict certain parts of it as like children's cartoons, I suppose, but like at what point are people truly taught that the Bible is not a children's cartoon on paper? Everything imaginable is in there, like the most horrific shit imaginable is in the Bible. But you're not taught that. You go to church every Sunday or whenever, and you're just taught like, oh, we got to hold hands and sing Kumbaya. And by the way, husbands, listen to your wife. All right, now give your tithes and go home. That's church now.
To kind of bring us back on topic, do you think this could be a precursor then to us, at least in the West, facing those conditions as are described in the verses you pulled up with Grok? I mean, for all of our problems, we're still quite prosperous. We're quite plentiful, actually, in our resources and our things, but I don't know. I'm kind of wrestling with this one, actually, because both too many men and women alike take too much glee in how we're destroying each other and our people's children, for that matter. So I find it hard to believe that it's just a matter of desperation, at least in our case. I'd actually have to go over and read those passages in the Bible to see how much that is the case in Scripture.
I saw someone on Twitter. I didn't bookmark it or anything, and I wish I did, but someone said, "Why are women so angry? They won." And my thought is very simply, for too long we have thought that material wealth is the only true wealth. Like, as long as we have plenty of stuff, we'll be completely fulfilled in life. And what's really happened is we have more than enough stuff and not even close to enough of everything else we need. We're starving in every other way. I don't know if you remember the 2000s and 2010s very well in a political context, but atheism was very popular on like YouTube and stuff. It was certainly on the rise for a while. That never quite went away. It just stopped being popular to talk about it. And in my opinion, it was at least a good thing because at least it began, to take power away from the evangelicals and the prosperity gospel, all that bullshit. Something had to take away their influence, and unfortunately, it was the rise of the new atheists. But at least it was something. And now we're kind of gravitating toward going back to traditional Christianity. So that's a good thing. But anyway, the rise of atheism never truly, it wasn't truly reversed. There's still a shitload of atheists in the West. There's still a lot more atheists than there were 50 years ago. And you're seeing how these people are behaving. They're not happy. They're purposeless. They're aimless. Why do they turn to communism overwhelmingly, or socialism, or however they rebranded it now? Why do they keep turning to it? Because it's all they have to fulfill themselves. Like, yeah, we have more than enough, but some people still don't have enough, and they dedicate their lives to that.
Another way I'd put it is that they don't understand the world outside of the material. They can't.
Mm-hmm.
Which is why, whether it's atheism or socialism or communism, these are all just rebrandings of really the same worldview.
I don't know if you read my blog post about this, but my blog post about monarchy inspires people to rise. This is exactly what I was getting at. And I meant it, at least in the article, in a physical sense or even a political sense, but it's spiritual too. When you don't shy away from hierarchy, that inspires people to rise, to do better, to become something more. It's one of the reasons monarchy, you'll never really see an atheist monarchy, will you? You've never seen that before. You probably never will, because that structure just naturally inspires people to look up, physically and spiritually. When you're ruled by a king and his lords, you want to rise in those ranks, don't you? And when you live that way on earth, you're also inspired to rise spiritually. You want to be closer to God. Obviously, you'll never be the king. Obviously, you'll never be God, but you still want to rise closer to them.
Yeah, basically, monarchy, and I have been reading your blogs and reposting your articles, by the way, in case you were wondering.
Okay.
The thing about monarchy is it's not just, it's the most honest system in general, I know that, but as far as what we're talking about right now, it's the most honest as far as power struggles. Because there are absolutely downsides to that, to recognizing, or to that kind of hierarchy existing, I should say. The thing is, though, that specific hierarchical issue, that kind of struggle, exists literally everywhere. It's actually something I've been thinking about, like how people, at least people that I know of, have brought up bad kings as an example of, of why I shouldn't be a monarchist because of said examples. And I can't help but wonder,
Such a
okay, but
stupid argument.
well, yeah, I've come to realize that I actually think that is preferable, even in the case of not being ruled by good kings, because the hierarchy is still honestly recognized. It doesn't pretend to be anything else, and the monarch in question doesn't typically pretend to be what he is, unless he's a puppet. excuse me, unless he's a puppet ruler, in which case he's not really in charge anymore, is he? He's not calling the shots, is he? And then you don't really have a monarchy, do you? But to kind of tie it back to our main topic here, you mentioned that post that you didn't bookmark about someone asking, why are women so unhappy? They got everything they wanted. Well, what we're really looking at from a monarchical lens is giving the people everything they clamor for. See, this applies to both women and people in general, because what we do is we take people who shouldn't be in charge and we give them all that they ask for. And we've deconstructed what authority used to be over said individuals. But the problem is, now that we've done that, well, what you've been talking about, there's no hierarchy, honest hierarchy there to inspire people to rise anymore. So that's why women are so angry or so upset. They have nothing to inspire to. As far as they know, they are at the top. How do you get any higher than the top?
They're
You
at the
don't.
top and they're still miserable. And so a similar situation like what junkies go through. They're like, okay, I just shot up and it was nowhere near as good of a high as the first time. So how do I get to that high again? In other words, it sounded better to women, all this feminism shit sounded better to them before they had it. Or even when they first started to get it. But now they have everything and it's like it doesn't even compare to
Like how
the thought of it that they had in the past.
democracy always sounds good to the people when it's presented to them up until they actually have to practice it.
Yeah. And I know I've said this a lot in the past, but I'll say it again. I think of politics in terms of like you almost can't even escape this dynamic. Parents and children. That is all politics in my view. And democracy, and especially those who want democracy, they're children. Democracy is just capitulating to children. The children are whining about this, whining about that. They're making demands, and it's the parents going, okay, here you go. And then they want something else, and the parents go, okay, here you go. But who's still really in charge? It's the parents. So democracy it's more than just shadow oligarchy. It's when you have shitty parents, really. But the parents never stop being in charge. Anyway, people aren't happy these days because since we believe in equality so much, equality is flattening the hierarchy, or at least trying to. It's just destruction. When you think about it, that's all equality of any kind is. Death. I remember talking to Kiza about this. Might have been in a past video that's now not on my channel anymore. I don't remember. But Kiza made this point that we are only equal in death. And as he was explaining this, that's when I realized, wait a minute. Equalness is death. They are one and the same. It's not that one leads to the other. They are the same. You think of Jesus, his message, it's becoming one with the Father, rising up higher than your very human worldly instincts and desires. That's a hierarchical message. Becoming better than what you are. Whereas equality just destroys. It's death, and Jesus talked about defeating death. I don't know if he necessarily meant it in this philosophical way, or maybe he did, like all the different ways he could have meant it at the same time. Equalness is just flattening things and pushing all meaning, all purpose, all differences, all everything, pushing it all out and just flattening it to death until you're just nothing. You're nothing but matter anymore. You're just matter. You're just a thing. An identityless, soulless thing. You're just matter. So why are people so miserable? Well, taking this back to Lindsay Clancy, why are women doing this? Their soul has been crushed out of them. Everyone's been flattened out of any sense of anything, really. They think they're trying to reach some goal, some higher anything. They're not. Death is the point now, and they don't even know it. They don't even consciously think of it that way. But death is the point now. What's left? Nothing. So now we just have to destroy things. That's all they understand now, including a lot of men. It's just find things to destroy now.
And yet they can never limit that to themselves. They have to drag everyone around them down as well. This might be a controversial opinion, but I wouldn't mind these freaks putting themselves down, I'll word it that way. But they can never just limit it to themselves. No, 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 no. They have to bring anyone they can get with them, whether it's a woman bringing her own children down to death. They can't seem to just do so alone.
Yeah.
It's almost as if bringing others down with you fulfills some kind of need that you can't satisfy, even with, well, I guess I've kind of answered the question I was going to ask there. It is that purpose of death. When you only lead yourself to it, you don't get that sense of accomplishment that you would have in a very sick and twisted way, as if you were to bring others down as well. Because at least then you feel like you're accomplishing something.
As long as there is someone else, your ideology has not been fulfilled. Your ideology is making everything equal. Well, it's everything. As long as there are people over there who are not like us, you have failed. So, of course, they have to impose their will on people who want nothing to do with them. Of course they do. And when you think about it, every ideology is all encompassing. It's just what your ideology wants to do with others. With Christianity, I mean, it's a very individualistic, for lack of a better word, religion. It's about you and your relationship to God. It's not a political religion, but at least it's you see everyone in the same light as, everyone has the choice to be with God, to be one of his children. Everyone has that choice, and you see everybody from that lens of you have the choice to do this. So it's not an imposition. We're not imposing that. At least true Christianity isn't supposed to impose that. Believe or die. We're not supposed to behave that way. That's wrong. We're supposed to see everybody as you have a choice. I want to make you aware of the choice. This is what we are supposed to do, reveal the truth to them, and then they make the choice. Kind of like siblings. Like, a sibling can walk away from their parent, but, you still have the same parents, right? We're still God's children in a sense, no matter what we do. But like siblings, you can choose to remain close to your parents, heed their advice, follow them, follow their lead. Or I should say your father. Or you can walk away from your father. But, we see everybody as children of God. We see everybody as siblings. That does not inherently mean we have to force anything, though. Am I making sense?
Of course,
So like all ideologies are all encompassing. It's just a matter of the difference between how you see everybody else. With the left, with equalness, when that's your religion, it's a must. There's no choice involved. It's a must. This is how you must make reality. Whereas with us, we see everyone as siblings, and whether or not our siblings want to continue to follow our father.
I understand what you mean. What you're just describing is actually a very commonly held belief in my faith, though. At least as far as I'm concerned, you're good. But unfortunately, to a lot of people, it does seem like a difficult concept to grasp. The idea that other human beings can be children of God.
Isn't that standard Christianity? And that's how
I
I've
mean, it
always
is.
understood it.
I mean, it is, but you can technically be real pedantic about what exactly that means. Like, I've heard some argue that we're not, actually children of God until we come to Christ and become children of God that way. There's all sorts of interpretations and arguments around that concept, but I think your point still stands.
So we've established that women are doing this because they're miserable. Where we have to discuss and argue about this in the first place because everybody's miserable. I already went over the nature of women in my first reaction to this story. So let's go over the facts of the case. So I wrote down that her children's names were Cora, Dawson, and Callan, and they were all born roughly 2 years apart. She had maternity leave. Lindsay, by the way, Lindsay Clancy, had maternity leave for all three of her children. Father, Patrick, took 12 weeks paternity leave after their third child's birth. They hired a nanny who worked 3 days a week. She only worked for a few months, so it's not like they had a nanny, the whole time they had kids. But they still had a nanny for a while. Lindsay's parents visited them frequently and helped with childcare. Sometimes they even stayed for days at a time. Lindsay had mental issues but never had plans to hurt herself. She repeatedly said she did not have suicidal or homicidal thoughts. She was diagnosed with major depressive disorder, severe without psychotic features, in December 2022. So that was after their third child. The diagnosis specifically said severe without psychotic features. And the day before the killings, she had a virtual appointment with her doctor, and she denied having suicidal or homicidal thoughts. So those are what I think are the important facts of the case. She did have a lot of prescriptions. She was on a lot of medications. I didn't even write down all of them because there were numerous medications. I am against that. I'm against big pharma bullshit. I still don't think it remotely justifies what she did, though. Not even close. I also think that they didn't compel her to do what she did at all. I've been medicated. I've been, treated for stuff when I was like a teenager and a young adult. My thoughts never went that far. And also, it, even if you could, well, okay, honestly, how can you even make that case when these things are in such abundance? It's such a huge industry. Then why doesn't this happen more often?
It begs the question of what else was going on.
Like, okay, it's like pharmaceuticals drive people to kill their children or something. Like, okay, why isn't this more common then? It's not an argument because it's inconsistent. It's internally inconsistent. This doesn't happen because people were on pills. So that's just bullshit. But here's what does happen, whether you're on pills or not. Women throwing their babies into dumpsters, that happens a lot. Abortions, that happens a lot. Just generally women harming their own kids. That's pretty common. And you don't need pharmaceuticals to do that, especially if you're a woman. Sorry. I heard the Soviet Union tried to outlaw abortion, and then this is just true. The rate of abortions went up, and so they legalized it again. And I think they tried to control it a different way. But the point is, this was like 100 years ago. This was before big pharma, or at least before what it is now. Women were still doing this. They were still harming their own kids. SIDS, for example, I'm pretty sure that predates big pharma as we think of it.
You'd have to remind me what that is real quick.
Sudden infant death syndrome.
Okay, thank you.
It's where babies just suddenly die and no one has any idea how.
Yeah, I can already smell BS there.
Yeah. Point is, it's not pharmaceuticals. That's a bullshit excuse. Don't get me wrong. Pharmaceuticals, having, your body getting dumped with all these foreign chemicals that don't even naturally go together, obviously that's going to mess with you. But there's a difference between like, I'm tired or I'm overly anxious or I'm irritable or I'm happy. Like just I'm happy and I don't know why. Like yeah, they can alter your body's chemistry and to an extent your brain's chemistry. But it's a huge leap to go from that to pills made me murder my children. That's just horseshit. And again, it doesn't happen often enough for that to be believable. or else this $1 trillion industry would collapse already. But I suppose people aren't, or I should say women aren't blaming it on the pills. They're blaming it on postpartum depression. But I went so long, I went on a rant there for so long about pills because that's the only unusual thing. That's the only detrimental thing about what led up to what she did. It's the only out of the ordinary thing, and it's still not enough. Yeah, postpartum depression is a thing, and maybe it's really common, but again, either postpartum depression actually makes women what they are. I don't know if you want to argue about that, but either it does or it doesn't, and either implication is saying a lot. So either women should just not be around children for like 2 years after they give birth, or they can, in which case this argument's bullshit. Like, which one is it? But either choice is damning to Lindsay Clancy.
For sure. And I don't have the knowledge to debate as to which is more likely the case. I mean, me personally, I haven't even ruled out demonic possession, so make of that what you will.
I don't think so. It's not that I just want to blame a woman, but I don't think so, because it was so.
I'm gonna go ahead and stop you there actually, because I think that could be worth its own discussion. What I'm trying to point out is that I don't think the specific cause, like whether or not the pills had a heavy effect or not, I don't think that's actually relevant to the part that she did it. This is what I'm actually learning is a very common occurrence, and there's more than one other woman in existence actively cheering for it.
Yeah.
I think that's really the point here, and we've kind of already covered some of the elements to that, but
Yeah, that's true.
that is just the state of the world we're in, the state of women, and heck, we could even argue how much that says about men that we continue to put up with it all when
Yeah,
we
especially.
theoretically have the power to put an end to it, but we don't because we're lazy schlubs who have our most primal needs met.
Yeah, I've even in my personal life, I've had to explain to people that I don't hate women, and I don't say that. I never say that as a way of saying like, "Oh, don't hurt me. I don't hate women." It's not that I'm scared of what people will think or do if I just come out and say I hate women. No, I literally do not hate women. And the reason is very fucking simple. I I think of it as, what if a mega corporation decided one day, okay, we're going to replace half of all of our workers with chimpanzees. And you're like that one person that raises their hand and says, maybe we shouldn't do that. That sounds like a terrible idea. And then all the people who are for it go, what, do you hate chimpanzees? Your response, of course, would be, no, it's just they're chimpanzees. They're not equipped to run a corporation. Are you guys insane? You don't have to hate chimps to think this is a terrible idea. I honestly think of it in the same terms. It's not that I hate women. I just think we've been putting them in positions they're not fit for, namely power. It's that simple. But when women are in their place, for the most part, they do just fine.
Now, if a woman hears this, she's going to be like, did you just compare us to chimpanzees? And, completely miss the point.
Of course, yeah. They did not.
And a lot of men too, unfortunately.
Yeah, I suppose. It's difficult to hate something when you understand its nature. No, it's that simple. There is a difference between men and women. There's a difference between humans and dogs. There's a difference between everything. Everything there is. The age of egalitarianism that we live in, it makes no sense on its very basic premises. You have to believe that there are no differences between people, and I just don't know how it's even possible to believe that. We still say, even now, we still say men and women. Women, the very ones who want equality so bad, still distinct themselves from men. That implies difference. Okay, so we're not the same. Like, it's so basic. We're all the same, but we're different. We're different, but we're the same. Come on.
That that is actually the argument, though, isn't it? That we're different, but we're basically the same. At least from what I've heard, that is unironically the argument.